I believe we all are seated. We should start the session. Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Ariha Ijaz. I have been the member of Women in Law Initiative for the past 2 years. So I will be doing the introductions and formally opening the session before I invite Ms. Nida to do so. So this competition law and practice in person awareness session is conducted by Women Law Pakistan, Initiative Pakistan, along with the Competition Commission of Pakistan and Punjab Bar Council. This was previously conducted in Islamabad's High Court Bar Association in collaboration with them as well, and this is further continued in Lahore. So I'll give you a brief overview of the session and introduce the panelists and speakers for today's session as well. But before I do that, and before I invite Ms. Nida, we would like to start, now that we have registered and seated, we would like to start with the recitation of the Holy Quran, and for that we have Muhammad Jahangir Wani Sahab, who would be doing that for us.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا صدق الله العظيم.
Moving on, so I will briefly introduce what this session is going to look like and who the speakers and panelists are going to be. It will start with the opening remarks by Saeed Ahmed Nawaz, which would be followed by a keynote address by Mohammad Ahmed Qayyum Saab. It would then be followed by a screening of short video package on competition law in Pakistan and a presentation of brief overview of competition law itself, which would be done by Mr. Ahmed Qadir. This would then be followed by two case studies actually, case studies on abuse of dominant position and prohibited agreements, which would be done by Ms. Maliha Kudus, and a case study on deceptive marketing practices, which would be done by Mr. Shehzad Hussain. This would then be followed by a panel discussion, which would be moderated by Ms. Maliha Ahmed Kudus, and the panelists for this are going to be Ms. Maria Khan, Mr. Ahmed Qadir, and Ms. Sarah Bandial. This would then be followed by closing remarks by Ms. Bushra Naz Malik. So before we formally begin now that we should formally begin the session, I would like to call the award-winning diversity inclusion advocate and founder of Women in Law Initiative, Ms. Nida Usman Chaudhary, to commence the session.
Assalamu alaikum everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on a Friday afternoon. I know this is a difficult time for most of you. सबने छुट्टी पे जाना होता है वीकेंड पे, तो फिर भी आप लोग वक्त निकाल के आए एंड आई वांट टू ऑब्वियसली स्टार्ट विद एन अपॉलॉजी कि हम थोड़ा सा अपने टाइम से जो है लेट शुरू कर रहे हैं, बट उसके लिए बहुत बहुत माजरत. We're just sorting out some of the tech issues, but meanwhile I just wanted to welcome you all here. इस्लामाबाद में भी हमने जब ये सेशन किया था तो वी हैड अ रियली गुड रिस्पॉन्स, और इसको करने का मकसद एसेंशली यही था व्हेन CCP रीच्ड आउट टू अस कि इस सब्जेक्ट की अवेयरनेस पर्टिकुलरली अमंग फीमेल लॉयर्स वो करना चाह रहे थे, एंड दैट इज़ वाई वुमेन इन लॉ इनिशिएटिव इज़ हेयर टुडे, बिकॉज Anybody who's interested in corporate practice and anybody who's interested in exploring how there's an overlap between corporate practice, in-house आपके जो councils हैं, उनके लिए भी this can be something which is very relevant. और फिर of course अभी recently जो हिको आइसक्रीम का केस था और किस तरह से कुछ आइसक्रीम्स अपने आप को फ्रोजन डिज़र्ट कहेंगी, वो आइसक्रीम्स नहीं है, तो इसका स्टूडेंट्स के अंदर बहुत चर्चा हुआ. A lot of my students were interested in understanding कि ये क्या एरिया है, ये क्या इसमें कोई प्रैक्टिस के ख़ास तौर पे प्रॉस्पेक्ट्स क्या हैं, क्योंकि एज फीमेल स्टूडेंट्स, एज फीमेल लॉयर्स, they've heard a lot about CCP as an organization. It's been headed, 2 दफ़ा इसको मिस राहत कुनैन साहिबा ने भी हेड किया है. So a lot of good female practitioners are working in this, so they were really interested in knowing कि उसके यहाँ पे उनके लिए क्या prospects हैं. And so that became the basis for us to be on board. I am extremely grateful to Punjab Bar Council for their support in hosting us. उसमें of course सर फहरिस्त तो मोहम्मद अहमद कयूम साहब का नाम है. He's been, the person जिनकी वजह से we've been able to manage things here. और इसके साथ साथ ऑफ कोर्स रजिस्ट्रार पंजाब बार काउंसिल साहब, रफाकत साहब का और वीसी साहब का भी और तमाम टीम का स्टाफ का बहुत शुक्रिया कि वो यहाँ पे उनके ताउन से हम इस चीज़ को ऑर्गेनाइज कर सकें आपके लिए. एंड ऑफ कोर्स बिफोर आई रिक्वेस्ट मिस्टर सईद अहमद नवाज साहब टू कम एंड गिव हिज ओपनिंग रिमार्क्स, मैं आप सबका भी वंस अगेन शुक्रिया अदा करना चाहूँगी फॉर बीइंग हियर टुडे. Our opening remarks are by Mr. Syed Ahmed Nawaz Saab. He's a member of Competition Commission of Pakistan, and he commenced his professional journey as a commissioned officer in the Pakistan Army and was then inducted into a district management group. He has served in various capacities for the governments of Punjab and KPK, from subdivisions to provincial departments. His diverse roles included team leadership and staff officer positions. He extensively conducted and supervised applied research, modular training, and capacity building with focus on institutional development and socioeconomic trends analysis. With his wealth of experience, he remains dedicated for a better world, equitably progressive and sustainable economic development. He graduated with an MBA Finance from University of Punjab, and he's also the winner of highly competitive Hubert Humphrey Fellowship 2002-3 in the field of finance and economics from Boston University in USA. और बहुत सारी accomplishments हैं within Pakistan and abroad. On that note, sir, I would like to welcome you for your opening remarks. Thank you so much.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Distinguished guests, esteemed legal professionals, learned members of the Women in Law Initiative Pakistan, representative from the Punjab Bar Council, and all the participants joining us today, Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon. It's an honor and pleasure for me, and a privilege, of course, to welcome you all to this important session today on behalf of the Competition Commission of Pakistan. This session represents a significant collaborative effort between the CCP, the Women in Law Initiative Pakistan, and the Punjab Bar Council. The aim is to provide you a comprehensive insight into the competition law and practice, and as it functions within the dynamics of our society and economy. The competition law intends to ensure that our businesses and business environment remains fair, competitive, and conducive to innovation in the face of rapidly increasing, changing economic challenges and evolving market dynamics. There is nothing status in the economy, society, and polity all over the world, and Pakistan is no exception. The session has been designed to cover several key aspects of the competition law in Pakistan, such as the abuse of dominant position. My learned friends from the legal fraternity must be knowing that dominant position per se is neither an offense nor a crime, but when somebody decides to abuse the dominant position, then it attacks the legal provision of the competition law. Similarly, prohibited agreements and the criteria for exemption from the prohibited agreements. Deceptive marketing, obviously, the practice and behavior of deceptive marketing in a consumer-centric markets like ours is a concern for everybody because we are buyer as well as sellers of some product or service on one hand and other way around on the other hand. And finally, the mergers and acquisitions from the perspective or focus on the creation of dominant position. If a merger or acquisition doesn't lead to creation of dominant position, it's not a concern for the CCP. In fact, this session is a setting to provide for an interactive dialogue between both the party, the presenters as well as the participants. Here we may engage with senior officials of the CCP to gain first-hand insights into the law and practices and practical implications within our legal framework and the way that things work here in Pakistan. This effort is intended to enrich your understanding and empower you to identify and address anti-competitive practices in your personal as well as professional lives. Today's discussions will not only focus on regulatory framework, but the broader benefits that fair and open competitive environment brings to businesses and the public alike. So it has to be taken from both the perspectives that what is the legal and regulatory framework of the competition law, the way it's being practiced, and what are the benefits for the businesses, society, economy, polity in Pakistan if we manage to have fair and competitive markets. I would like to express my sincerest gratitude to our partners at Women in Law Initiative Pakistan and Punjab Bar Council for their unwavering support for organizing such like sessions. This is not the first of its kind. Their efforts to foster legal excellence and promote gender diversity within the legal fraternity are highly commendable. I earnestly urge and encourage all the participants to actively participate, ask insightful questions, and share their perspectives so that we could learn from the experiences and feelings of each other. Let's make it a good opportunity to deepen our understanding of competition law and explore how we can collectively contribute to a more competitive and equitable business environment in Pakistan. Thank you once again for being here, and I look forward to a very engaging and enriching interaction with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for all your kind words. Supporting you is supporting the cause for creating more awareness among legal fraternity, and I think that is a shared goal. So it is our pleasure to be partners in that endeavor. I would, before we open, and I invite all the speakers to join us on the panel, I would like to welcome Mr. Muhammad Ahmed Qayyum Saab for his keynote address. He's a barrister, advocate, Supreme Court of Pakistan, and member of Punjab Bar Council. and the chairman of the Legal Education Committee of Pakistan. He has background in economics and competition law, having earned a degree in economics from Columbia University, New York, with Nobel Prize winner Robert Mundell. He has successfully defended the vires of the Competition Commission law before the Lahore High Court for the Commission and has even had part in drafting amendments to the law and currently appears for the Commission before various forums as well. He's our mentor and guide as well, and without his support, none of this would be possible. So thank you so much. Please join us for your keynote.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It is my happy duty to welcome Competition Commission of Pakistan and Women in Law Initiative यहाँ पर. Madam Nida has been very kind. हम ना भी होते तो उनके फिर भी functions वगैरह यहाँ पे हो जाते हैं. She was being very very kind because एक चीज़ की मुझे हमेशा उलझन वगैरह रही है कि पंजाब बार काउंसिल आप तमाम दोस्तों का एक्चुअल घर है. ये प्लेटफॉर्म एक्चुअली आपका मौजूद है. We did not want these functions to happen in Awari. We want them in your own home. और ये platform मैडम के लिए तो इनके तो जो Women in Law Initiative जो है we believe in everything they stand for. तो इनके लिए तो हमेशा ही खुला है मगर आप तमाम दोस्तों के लिए भी है. So I welcome you all as well. Now the thing is मेरे इंट्रोडक्शन के अंदर मैडम ने कंपटीशन कमीशन और को डिफेंड करना और इसके कानून की बैकग्राउंड वगैरह थोड़ी बहुत मुझे आपके सामने बताई है. I am a person who is already converted. I do believe कि पाकिस्तान के अंदर अगर बेहतरी आनी है, इकोनॉमिक स्टेबिलिटी आनी है और अगर हमने आगे जाना है तो कंपटीशन कमीशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान एक्चुअली डज हैव अ वेरी वाइटल रोल. अमेरिका, इंग्लैंड, दुनिया के अंदर जहाँ पे भी आप जाके सारी की सारी चीज़ें देखें, इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट हाँ कहते तो हैं अमेरिका के अंदर के रॉबर्ट बैरन्स और रॉकफेलर और फोर्ड और उन्होंने बीच में डेवलप किया है. मगर अमेरिका के अंदर प्रॉपर उस टाइम के ऊपर जाके डेवलपमेंट हुई जब स्टैंडर्ड ऑयल को टुकड़ों में तोड़ा गया और उसकी मोनोपली को करके और इकोनॉमी को ओपन अप किया गया. अगर आपने इकोनॉमिक्स थोड़ी बहुत बीच में पढ़ी हुई है तो यू विल अंडरस्टैंड कि मोनोपलीज के नुकसानात वगैरह क्या होते हैं. प्रिंसिपली तो ये आपको मैं कुछ इस तरीके से बीच में बता देता हूँ कि एक रिसेंटली मैं नीचे थोड़ा सा कर रहा था, थोड़े दबे लफ्ज़ों में आपके सामने इसका जिक्र करूँगा कि पाकिस्तान के हाईएस्ट इलेक्टेड ऑफिस के साथ एक इनफॉर्मल सी कॉन्फ्रेंस हो रही थी जहाँ पे पाकिस्तान के 5 में से 2 सबसे अमीर बंदे आए हुए थे और वो वहाँ पे रोना रो रहे थे कि यार देखो FBR को बंद हो जाना चाहिए और कंपटीशन कमीशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान को बंद हो जाना चाहिए, अमीर तरीन जो लोग हैं. बिकॉज बात ये है पाकिस्तान के अंदर अमीर तरीन से अमीर तरीन हो ही जा रहे हैं. लोन्स वगैरह हम सारी दुनिया से लेते हैं मगर चूँकि मोनोपलीज मौजूद हैं, चूँकि ये जो सबसे ज़्यादा पावरफुल ऑफ द पावरफुल हैं उनकी जेबों के अंदर सारे के सारे पैसे जा रहे हैं. पाकिस्तान या जनरल अवाम वगैरह तो करीब से करीब तर होती जा रही है और उनको अगर कोई रेगुलेट करता है, इफ़ यू लुक एट द केसेस दैट कंपटीशन कमीशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान इज़ डीलिंग विद, इट इज़ द स्ट्रॉन्गेस्ट ऑफ द स्ट्रॉन्गेस्ट. और उन वो वाले एरियाज़ के जिनके साथ आम पार्लेंस के अंदर अखबारों के अंदर माफिया का वर्ड यूज़ होता है, शुगर माफिया, सीमेंट माफिया, और इनके ऊपर अगर आप इनके ऑर्डर्स और लाखों करोड़ों रुपए के जो फाइन्स वगैरह लगाए जाते हैं वो अगर आप आके देखते हैं तो वो यहाँ पे सही अचीवमेंट इनकी कंपटीशन कमीशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान की और इनकी एबिलिटी नज़र आती है. अगर कोई फेलियर नज़र आता है तो हमारे जुडिशल सिस्टम का भी वहाँ पे नज़र आता है आपको कि इनकी तरफ से फाइन्स वगैरह तो हो जाते हैं मगर स्टे हो जाता है और 10-10 साल तक स्टे रहते हैं. ये वो कानून है जो कि शायद पाकिस्तान के अंदर बनाना ही कोई नहीं इब्तदा के अंदर चाहता था. पहले मोनोपोली कंट्रोल अथॉरिटी एक हुआ करती थी, बहुत अरसे से किसी को उसके बारे में मालूम भी नहीं था और शायद हमने पाकिस्तान के अंदर कोई लोन वगैरह हासिल करना तो उसकी कंडीशनैलिटी थी तो कंपटीशन कमीशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान शायद बनाना पड़ गया हमें. बना तो दिया मगर इस बच्चे को उसके क्रिब के अंदर ही मारने की बेशुमार कोशिशें की गई और 10 साल तक इसके वायरीज के ऊपर लाहौर हाई कोर्ट और दूसरे कोर्ट्स के अंदर स्टेज वगैरह हुए कि जी ये फेडरेशन का वजूद टूट जाएगा अगर इसमें कंपटीशन कमीशन आ गया, ये प्रोविंशियल सब्जेक्ट है कि ये नहीं. और आर्गूमेंट्स तो यहाँ पे हाई कोर्ट में ये होते रहे कि जी कॉर्नर के अंदर अगर कोई दुकानदार है मौजूद तो क्या उसको कंपटीशन कमीशन रेगुलेट कर सकते. गुफ्तगू सारी की सारी यहाँ पे आपके सामने इस नौयत से होती होगी। कंपटीशन कमीशन के अंदर के आम बंदे के हुकूक की बात हो रही है, बट दिस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इज़ देयर टू प्रोटेक्ट दम। ऑल ऑफ दीज नाइसिटीज़ हमें क्या फ़र्क पड़ता है, वी लॉयर्स आर ऑल अबाउट एक्चुअली हार्डकोर वकालत और कमाई और ये चीज़ें वगैरह। हम बार काउंसिल के अंदर आपको ट्रेन करते हैं with the biggest hammers and with the tools with which you can get justice, with which you can go ahead and put forward your case. And this is one of the strongest forums against the most powerful people in Pakistan. Frankly, यहाँ पे जिक्र वगैरह किया गया कि अगर कोई बंदा कोई चीज़ वगैरह बना रहा है, उसको रेगुलेट करने के लिए कंज्यूमर कोर्ट्स भी मौजूद हैं। कंज्यूमर कोर्ट आम कंज्यूमर और आम प्रोवाइडर और सर्विसेज के लिए होते हैं। यहाँ पे मेगा जो इंडस्ट्रीज़ हैं उनको आप रेगुलेट कर सकते हैं। दैट इज़ द रीज़न वाई यू नीड टू गेट इन टू दिस एंड यू नीड टू बी अवेयर ऑफ कि अब्यूज़ ऑफ डोमिनेंट पोजीशन क्या होती है, टेक्निकल कॉन्सेप्ट्स वगैरह हैं। बट फ्रैंकली this is one of the biggest guns, you have one of the biggest arrows in your quiver as a lawyer, and that is why we are here to basically welcome competition commission के बारे में introduction और आपको train वगैरह करने के लिए भी पॉइंट आउट आपके सामने मैं बेसिकली ये करना चाह रहा हूँ कि इस लॉ के रास्ते के अंदर बेशुमार रोड़े अटकाए जाते हैं, और अगर आपने टॉप लेवल की अगर आपने वकालत करनी है, द हाईएस्ट पेड लॉयर्स उनके खिलाफ अगर अपना स्किल आपने टेस्ट करना है तो इस जगह पे मिलते हैं। द हुज हु जो सारे के सारे हैं शुगर वालों के लिए इस साइड के ऊपर खड़े होते हैं। कंपटीशन एपलेट ट्राइब्यूनल, वहाँ पे इनके ऑर्डर्स को वहाँ पे चैलेंज किया जाता है। वो ट्राइब्यूनल इस नौयत का ट्राइब्यूनल है कि ऑफन टाइम्स वहाँ पे कोई बंदा अपॉइंटेड होता ही नहीं है, तो इट्स नॉन फंक्शनल। अभी रिसेंटली शायद मैंने सुना कि शायद दोबारा से फंक्शनल होने लगा है, तो वहाँ पे जो पेंडिंग केसेस हैं। लेकिन मज़ा आपको मैं ये बताना चाह रहा हूँ, इस लॉ में इफ़ यू वांट टू, एंड ऑल ऑफ यू आर यंगस्टर्स, इफ़ यू वांट टू ट्राई आउट योर वकालत ऑन द बिगेस्ट लेवल अगेंस्ट द बिगेस्ट एक्चुअली प्रैक्टिशनर्स ऑफ द, ये करके एक्सक्लूसिवली आपको यहाँ पे वो नज़र आएंगे। या फिर अगर आपने बनना तो आप दूसरी साइड के ऊपर से एक्चुअली तगड़ी फीस लेके पेश हो जाए मेरे अगेंस्ट, वहाँ पे वो भी आपके पास एक पॉसिबिलिटी है, उधर से आप आ सकते हैं। सो दैट इज़ द थिंग, द रीज़न आई एम हेयर बिफोर यू, और आपके सामने ये जो गुफ्तगू वगैरह कर रहा हूँ, इज़ टू एक्साइट यू अबाउट दिस पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक। बिकॉज फ्रैंकली बात तो ये है, कंपटीशन कमीशन और इकोनॉमिक्स एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट इज वो समझना लाजमी है, बिकॉज यू हैव टू मेक योर केस। बट फैक्चुअली और फ्रैंकली ये है कि दिस एज आई एंड आई एम रिपीटिंग माई सेल्फ अगेन, this is one of the most fulfilling areas in which you can practice, because intellectually it is very 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 challenging. आपके इकोनॉमिक्स भी यहाँ पे आ जाती है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन भी आ जाती है कि जी फेडरेशन ने रेगुलेट करना है, किसने रेगुलेट करना है, और इसके ऊपर अगर आप जाके जजमेंट जो वायरीज वाली LPG एसोसिएशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान वर्सेस फेडरेशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान 2009 CLD है आई थिंक 139, और उसके बाद फिर फाइनल जजमेंट भी आई, तो इट्स अ who's who ऑफ जजेस, टॉप जो आपके इंटेलेक्ट्स वगैरह थे उनकी जजमेंट्स और लॉयर्स फॉर इट फाइटिंग इट आउट। तो ये एपिक लेवल की वर्ल्ड वॉर लड़ाई वगैरह आपको उसमें नज़र आएगी। सो वंस अगेन आई वेलकम ऑल ऑफ यू यहाँ पे पंजाब बार काउंसिल में। दिस इज़ योर होम। आई होप के यू फाइंड दिस ट्रेनिंग यूजफुल, एंड आई होप कि इस तरीके की मल्टीपल ट्रेनिंग्स आगे भी होते रहे, एंड आई लुक फॉरवर्ड टू कोलैबोरेटिंग विद वुमेन इन लॉ इनिशिएटिव एज वेल। Thank you very much, man.
थैंक यू सो मच सर। हम अब बाकायदा आगाज़ करते हैं अपने जो टॉपिक है उसका, और उसकी ओपनिंग के लिए ऑफ कोर्स व्हाट बेटर पॉइंट टू स्टार्ट दैन फ्रॉम एन ओवरव्यू ऑफ कंपटीशन लॉ, उसकी हिस्ट्री, उसका रोल, उसके फंक्शंस। और उसके लिए प्रेजेंटेशन जो है वो मिस्टर अहमद कादिर साहब जो हैं वो देंगे। ही इज़ DG CCP and he's DG for Research Department at CCP. He was part of Government of Pakistan's Committee for the Development of the National E-Commerce Policy Framework to address the interface between competition, big data as an essential facility, data privacy and consumer protection issues. Having joined the Commission in August 2008, he also served as Director General Advocacy and International Affairs, Director Investigation and the Commission's Secretary. Before the Commission, he was Chief Strategy Officer for a private sector company in Pakistan, assisting the CEO in leading change management and business diversification. He's also worked for another regulator in Pakistan, the SECP, where he was the project manager for the anti-money laundering program and the focal point for international communication and coordination. He began his career in Pakistan in 1996 in the development sector with the United Nations, initially with the United Nations Population Fund for the National Program on Primary Health. He began his career in Pakistan in 96 in the development sector, and subsequently he also worked for the UNDP for Information Communication Technology and electoral reforms. He also worked, albeit briefly, for the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank in Pakistan. His other interests include understanding the nexus between data, privacy, and consumer protection, data analytics, strategic management in the public sector, new institutional economics, and organizational transformation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Susan. In your words of introduction, for a moment I didn't recognize myself. It's been a long time that I've been trying to do different things, and I think rather than becoming an introduction to me, we're going to talk about the competition law. And I'm going to tell you something about economics. There's a legal aspect to competition law, but there's also an economic aspect. So I'm going to thank Ahmed Kayusa for introducing it. And
I'll just take 1 second, please. Sorry.
I'll just add on to a lot of what he said because his words actually mirror my thoughts. But I'll start with a personal anecdote. And I have one son, he's 14. And about a couple of months back, he said, "Dad, I want to become a lawyer." And I come from a family of doctors. I come from a family of doctors and diplomats, and I was a little surprised that, why law? But then my mother reminded me that my paternal grandfather was a judge, but he died before my father got married, so I never got a chance to meet. So sometimes I wonder if things circulate, whether you come a full circle and the legacies of your grandparents actually pass on to your children. And I was looking at all of you, and maybe 10 years from now, my son will be in a group like this, learning from somebody much more eloquent and better knowledgeable than I am. But I'll make an attempt to sort of introduce this very interesting work and this very interesting organization where I've dedicated the last 17 years of my life. And we'll see if we can sort of ignite some interest in what Competition Commission is, what the law is, and how it's absolutely essential for all economies. But before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Captain Saeed Ahmed Nawaz, Madam Bushra, Shahzad Saab, Ms. Malia, our co-panelists, Ms. Seher Bandial and Ms. Maria Khan, and Ahmed Qayyum Saab again for hosting us here on a Friday afternoon. So this is a topic on competition law and consumer protection in Pakistan. But before we start, what exactly do you know about competition? Now, Ahmed Saab ne badi wo virus, cases वगैरह वो बात की, आपने कुछ अखबारों में पढ़ा होगा, but how good is your knowledge about competition law? And you don't need to answer this, but these are just questions I'm leaving to you. What do you know about Pakistan's competition legislation? How many of you have some idea of this? 1, 2, a small percentage. And have you heard of the Competition Commission of Pakistan and the work it does? So maybe about 30-40% of you will actually know what the CCP does. So let me introduce the broader concepts जो Ahmed साहब ने भी touch किए in this video about what competition is and what role it plays in ensuring fair markets.
Limit out more slick markets to profit illegally. Apply dissimilar conditions to equivalent transactions. Require other parties' acceptance of unrelated supplementary obligations for contract conclusion. Consumers pay the cost of cartels and mafias. Cartels choke free markets, prosperity and national growth. Taking action against cartels improves sector and economic efficiency. Removes entry barriers. Ensures affordable product availability for consumers. Competition laws punish cartels, forcing their members to break free from business survival. From nationalization to privatization, Pakistan's economy is dominated by a select few major players who influence various sectors. Competition Commission of Pakistan has uncovered cartels in sugar, cement, meat, telecom, energy, banks, automobile, poultry, wheat flour, and edible oil sectors. Several other investigations are in progress. CCP's performance: 145 investigations, 58 dawn raids on cartels, 157 orders, 74 billion rupees fines, 1,078 mergers, 43 policy notes and opinions, and 21 research studies. The CCP encourages whistleblowers to report cartel activities. Individuals offering substantial information about cartels may be eligible for rewards up to 2 million rupees. If you have information about cartels, contact us at 051 111 11229 or WhatsApp number 0304 087 5255. You can also send us an email at complaints@cc.gov.uk or miu@cc.gov.uk. Your input is crucial for maintaining fair markets.
So why is competition important? Why does the modern economy pivot around this concept of competition? So if you saw in the video, you saw the supermarket stocked with shelves, you saw goods for sale. So the ultimate thing is that competition gives you goods at rational prices. It favors the consumer because if you walk into a shop, you should not be limited to what you want to buy with your money. It's beneficial for businesses because it allows companies to operate in a relatively straightforward manner in the economy. And it favors the creation of new businesses. You know, आपकी intellectual property जब convert होती है into economic players, you know, new things, new goods and services come into the market, and that ultimately, hopefully, should benefit you and I as consumers. It promotes innovation. So अभी नीचे first floor पे VC साहब कह रहे थे Nokia का example दे रहे थे, and that's a very good example. You know, Nokia was the king of phones maybe 20 years ago, but it did not innovate, and hence nobody knows what Nokia is today. And when you have competition in the ultimate benefit accrues to the nationwide economy because it encourages this thing called productivity, and it allows countries to use scarce resources and put them to use in their most effective gains. Sorry about the sound quality of the video was a little muted, but it's all available on our YouTube channel, so you can go there and then you can have a chance to see that video along with some others that we put on there. So why do you need a competition law? It allows players to compete fairly. There has to be some sort of rules or guidelines as to how companies operate in the business, and therefore we have a lot of sector regulators. We have the PTA for the telecom sector, we have the State Bank for the banking sector, Securities and Exchange Commission for capital markets and non-banking financial. So there's a regulatory framework that every good economy, market economy requires. And competition laws generally focus on two main areas. They prohibit anti-competitive behavior, and my colleague Malia will talk about these in detail. And they promote pro-competition practices, laws, and policies. So when we talked about having a national e-commerce policy, the need for competition had to be inbuilt into it to ensure that a small select number of players don't capture the market for the digital economy. Now, competition law is so important that let's just talk about the spread. So this is 1900, and the two countries that had competition law were both in North America, Canada and the United States. And from here, I think Ahmed Sahab ne kaha trust, Rockefellers, oil barons, robber barons, so the genesis of those terms actually emanated from North America. Then we come forward to 1960, and you see the start of some sort of competition law taking root in Europe. And in the aftermath of World War II, America imposed competition law on Japan. So when we come to 1980, India and Pakistan had the first version of competition law. This is called the Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Ordinance. And you notice, bit by bit, there's a slow spread in 1990. And then all of a sudden, with this wave of deregulation, privatization, liberalization, and global integration, you notice that something's happening now. And then when you come to 2010 and when you come to 2020, there's hardly any country which does not have some legal framework that governs and protects the process of competition in the world. And I'm pretty certain when we update this map in 2030, the few splotches of white that you see will all have become red. So this is the unique and the global appeal and requirement for competition law. But going back to, and I think Ahmed Sahab can sort of understand this, going back to 1776, and Adam Smith in his most famous book, he said, when people get together, it generally ends up in a conspiracy against the public. So the concept or the idea or the behavioral economics aspect of people deciding to form a cartel or to collude is part of human nature. Okay. Coming to 2001, Joseph Stiglitz, the Nobel Prize winner for that year, he says, firms inevitably seek to restrict competition. It's easier to just get together and engage in anti-competitive conduct than it is to compete. So what the government has to do is set rules of the game, and the rules of the game now become the competition legal frameworks. And that helps establish a fair playing field. Coming to the Nobel Prize winner for last year, Darren Acemoglu, in his book, he said, free markets are not unregulated markets. There has to be some sort of regulation that governs how companies and businesses operate in the market. So competition is not a given in the market. Government भी इसको affect कर सकती है और private sector की भी policies इसको affect कर सकती हैं. So it's not कि businesses खराब हैं या private sector खराब है, government की भी कुछ चीज़ें हो जाती हैं जो competition को damage कर देती हैं. और जब ये होता है, anti-competitive practices economy में strong हो जाती हैं और इसको फिर undo करना बड़ा मुश्किल होता है. So going back to what Ahmed Sahab said, 11 years, the vires of the commission, the strong mafias, the cartelists, gung-ho against the competition commission, because undoing anti-competitive behavior is a very steep uphill climb. It's not easy to offset the effects of this. So coming to Pakistan's competition law, Article 18 of the Constitution said कि अगर government भी किसी चीज़ में involve होगी, and this Constitution was promulgated in 1973. 1972 में जब economy nationalized हो गई थी and the government took control of the economy, the framers of the Constitution were very forward-looking. So I give them credit for actually putting in Article 18 where they said कि अगर government भी किसी चीज़ में involved है, that should not be to the detriment or the exclusion of any other private sector player, despite the fact that the country had been wholly nationalized at this time. So then coming to the first law, 1963, so anti-competitive distortions or economic distortions were already taking root in the economy, and Mehboob ul Haq की बड़ी famous statement थी कि Pakistan की economy is in the strong grip of 22 families. So in response to that, the first version of Pakistan's competition law came out in 1970. The Monopoly Control Authority was established, but Ahmed Sahab वो क्योंकि if किसी ने monopoly control का नाम नहीं सुना था, it did not apply to state-owned enterprises, and because the economy had been nationalized, the institution was rendered completely dead. And based on, it limped along till 2006, जब फिर एक नया trend आया to sort of make Pakistan's competition framework more relevant for the current century. अच्छा, एक और चीज़ थी monopoly control की कि अगर आपका market, it only restricted companies to have a market share of 33%. अगर कोई company 34% पे पहुंच जाए, the law stepped in to cut it down to size. So it was not growth friendly. You could have the best product, but the law did not permit you to have a market share of more than 33%. So how is that economically suitable for Pakistan's growth? It wasn't. So as a result of those deliberations, which happened in the early 2000s, the competition law came about, and this time the limit on market share is not there. So you can have a very large market share, but as long as you don't abuse or engage in anti-competitive behavior, the law is okay with that. So the commission is a statutory autonomous body. It looks at promoting competition and preventing, eliminating anti-competitive practices. Comprises of 5 members currently, and the law is inbuilt in saying that not more than 2 can be from the government. So it automatically engenders a private sector perspective here. The key pillars of the Competition Act, it looks at abuse of dominant position. So if you're a significant market power, what is it that you can do that hinders or impinges on competition? Prohibited agreements, cartels, are how groups of companies or individuals get together and sort of curtail the process of competition. Approvals of mergers and acquisitions, Captain Saeed साहब ने कहा कि mergers को हम देखते हैं कि companies collaborate कर रही हैं तो कोई dominant position तो नहीं बन रही, but there's one other point. If you reduce the number of players in the economy or in the market, you can actually form a cartel much more easily than when you have a large group of people. Competition advocacy is inbuilt into law. This is why we are here with you today, and this is why you're here with us today. And one other thing that not every country's competition law has, and this is deceptive marketing. You know, how do companies engage in distortions on the supply side, which is abuse of dominant position and prohibited agreements, or distortions on the demand side, when consumers go to the market, what influences their purchasing decision? So the deceptive marketing practices part is not in every competition law, but we are fortunate enough to have it. And Shehzad Sahab will actually walk you through that whole process here. Why is it important to know about competition? I'll go back to Ahmed Sahab. He said, you know, you can beef up your career by taking on the cartelists. You know, so that's something you do. You do something, you fight this moral crusade to bring about a very strong economy of Pakistan. And God knows we need it. Inflationary pressures, cost of business, over-regulated, 127 regulatory bodies in Pakistan. You know, are we competitive? Probably not, but that's a separate debate, and I'll not get into that. Or you can join forces with the dark side and make a lot of money. So this is why you need to know about competition law. But, you know, technically speaking, you know, it's good corporate behavior, and if you're going to go into advising your companies, your clients, you should have an idea of what is a global legal framework. Okay? So there's a significant knowledge gap, and I think many of you are probably when I asked that question at the start, not many of you were too familiar with the legal framework or the work of the commission. So maybe it's time you can start plugging in those gaps in your knowledge. And for businesses, if you're representing businesses, you don't want them to get caught up in enforcement action by the CCP, end up in fines, penalties, एक reputational harm होता है, एक reputational damage होती है. So as legal counsel, I think you are ethically bound to make sure your companies or your clients that you represent don't transgress, don't break the law. I'm going to hand over to my colleague because and I'll come back to talk about mergers and exemptions, but I want Maliha to introduce why mergers and exemptions happen, and she'll come, we'll go in sequence of the law, and I'll hand over to her and then come back and talk about mergers and exemptions. So thank you very much. If there are any quick questions, Ahmed Sahab, do you have a question? Shehzad Sahab, your Urdu is so much better than mine. Yes, Shehzad Sahab rehearsed for this the whole drive to Islamabad. He was practicing in front of the mirror. Anybody else?
सर आपने बात की है इस मतलब जो मैं सुन रहा था इसमें एक चीज़ है कि कंपनीज की तो बात थैंक यू इसमें हम सर जब मुनाफे की बात होती है तो हम कंपनीज की हद तक तो बात करते हैं mentioned है to protect consumers from anti-market competitive जो practices हैं तो जहाँ तक consumers की बात है हम ये रोज़ देखते हैं जो ground reality है कि जब फसलें उगती हैं या चीज़ें होती हैं तो खाद नहीं मिलती हैं किसानों को और वो फिर प्रोडक्शन भी कम कर देते हैं मार्केट प्रोपगेशन सिर्फ एक दो कंपनीज की है
Good question. Good question. But I'll stop you there. And Shazad Sahab and I will come back to it at the end of the presentation.
You are
That's it.
presentations only.
हाँ.
Most of your questions will be covered during this presentation. Okay. लेकिन we will answer the question.
But we
Just
we'll come
one
back
thing.
to it.
Consumer doesn't mean the end consumer only.
क्वेश्चन एंड पे रख लें
बहुत ज़्यादा
ठीक है
कि
सर.
जो है ना इस कंफ्यूजन से बचना.
just before this is not going to work so मैं एक ही माइक से जी अच्छा सो इससे पहले कि मलिया आए